October 6, 2022, I had the opportunity to go down to a little town called Florine, Louisiana to attend Florine High School's FFA Officer Retreat in Aggie Day. That was the day I met this little guy known as Cayde Gordon, who would soon become my best friend. Now, when I first arrived there, I was absolutely pumped and running off of adrenaline. I was completely tired, was just trying to find things to do. And I started talking to some of their officers, and there was this one guy that constantly stood out, and it was Cayde Gordon. When there was free time, me and him were constantly walking around talking about certain things that were going on in our lives. And I remember like yesterday when we started talking about World War II and all the crazy facts about that, I knew me and him were going to be best friends. I then talked to him about running for state office. Now, he was a little bit hesitant at first. He was a little bit, I'm not sure. But soon enough, we got him to the point where he decided to run. And now he's fixing to give you his retiring address. It's funny how conversations can change your entire life in less than 2 years. I kept up with him throughout the entire process, and I'm proud to say that what he's accomplished is truly outstanding, and the personal growth I've seen within this individual has made me say I am proud to be an FFA member because it showed I have had a major impact on members. Cayde, you can do anything that you put your mind to, and beyond all, you're going to kill it tonight. I'm proud of you, bud.
Where do I begin? Cayde is the most kind, supportive, history buff, and funniest person I know. He has always had my back, no matter what. He is constantly checking on me and helping me no matter what it is, like those history IXLs I hate doing and always have to get help with. If you know Cayde, you know he knows his history like no other and is proud to be an American. Cayde brings so much joy and laughter to a room, and I have loved watching him become the young man he is today. I hope each of you on the officer team and anyone that has come into contact with Cayde, he has left an impact on your lives like he has mine. One thing I know that he has taught me is that the world is in the palm of your hands, and you can do or be anything that you want. He says that fear is a reaction, courage is a decision. And I have learned this by watching him throughout his journey. Cayde, remember to always dream big and never give up. Always keep that little spark that you have inside yourself and have hope in your dreams because I know you are able to achieve them. I love you, Cayde. So with that being said, I would now like to introduce to you your 2023-2024 Louisiana State FFA Treasurer, my brother, Cayde Gordon.
We lean on love and love to lean on one another. 'Cause what don't take us, bend us, break us, make us.
I love superheroes. Ever since I was a little kid, I loved to watch superhero movies. I mean, what's not to love? You have cool car explosions, epic fight scenes between good guys and bad guys. And best of all, you have amazing and iconic catchphrases. There isn't one member that isn't sitting in here today that hasn't said the famous line, "I'm Batman." But it's not the action-packed scenes or what the heroes say that makes me love them so much. No, superheroes are exactly that. They're heroes. They're always putting themselves in danger in order to protect and to save others. And watching those movies growing up, it made me feel like I could be a superhero too. Of course, I knew I couldn't have any cool, crazy powers or jump off any really tall buildings, but I feel like I could eventually stand up to some form of an ultimate villain. Now, this fantasy of becoming a hero actually led to another great hobby of mine. For anyone who knows me, and for anyone who meets me, you'll soon find out that I love history, and I will take any opportunity to talk about it. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And I promise it won't be long or boring because all the officers and probably my entire chapter just rolled their eyes. But throughout history, there are countless stories of real-life heroes. People who did impossible things under impossible circumstances. And one of those heroes is a man named Sylvester Antioch. Sylvester Antioch was a soldier during the Second World War. and he served during the Allied invasion of Italy. Now, during this invasion, the small town of Anzio was picked out as one of the landing sites for American troops. This was a terrible campaign. Soon after landing on the beaches, our forces became trapped, encircled. They were bombed and shelled day and night. To break out of this encirclement, this trap, Sergeant Antelock and his men were ordered to go to another nearby town and capture it, so we could use the roads there to better maneuver our troops. While on that mission, he and his men encountered a railroad and an open field that they had to cross. As soon as they began to cross the tracks and step into that field, they came under fire by a German machine gun. In that moment, half of his men retreated back to the safety behind the tracks, while the other half were forced to hug the ground for protection. Seeing the desperate situation his men were in, Sergeant Antelock stood up from his perfectly protected position and began to charge over 200 yards towards the enemy. Doing this allowed his men to return back to a safe position, but he made himself a target. And in the process, he was shot, and he fell to the ground. Imagine the amount of bravery it must have taken to make that decision, to stand up from somewhere you felt safe and to put yourself in danger. There was no way that I was brave enough to do anything like that. But what's even crazier is that even though he chose to do it, even though he got shot, he's on the ground, he survived. And instead of running away and getting back to a safe position, he chose to get up, and he kept running towards the danger. Now remember, he was shot, so he's in a lot of pain, and now he's running. I got a question. For all of the sports players in here, I need a show of hands. How many of you play sports? All right, quite a few. I'm gonna put my hand down because I don't play sports. But for those who do, there's a lot of running involved, right, in sports. Well, when you're running, sometimes does it start to hurt? Do you get like pains in your side, cramps? Do you sometimes like feel like giving up because it just hurts so much? That's one of the reasons I don't do sports, because I feel like I would give up almost immediately. But despite the pain, despite the fear that Sergeant Antelock had, he still chose to get up and keep moving forward. You know, when you're in Quiz Bowl, any Quiz Bowl players? Okay, just a few. Well, when you're in that tiebreaker round and you miss that question and you lose the match, is that it? Are you done with the team? Do you quit and go home and give up all hope for next year? No, you go home and you study harder so you don't miss that same question. When you're on stage, top 4 teams in the state, you've put in all of your time and effort into this one competition, and you're stoked, you're excited standing here, waiting to hear your name called out. But when it is, and you're not first place, do you hang up your jacket? Do you quit the team? Do you tell your advisor that you're done? No, you go to your teammates, you go to your advisor, and you say, what can I do better? For the football players, when you're knocked down, which happens a lot, do you stay down? Of course not. Because your coach is on the sideline yelling at you to get back up. And if you don't, you're going to run laps. But there's also an entire team of people standing there counting on you to get back up and play ball. Sergeant Antelock had teammates too. And because they were counting on him, he got back up. And after only running just a few more yards, he was struck again. And again, he fell to the ground. Now, twice now, he has narrowly missed death. Twice now, he's been wounded. So much pain, so much fear. Why wouldn't he give up? Well, one of my favorite quotes is by Winston Churchill. And my sister gave you a little preview earlier, but it goes, fear is a reaction. And courage, that's a decision. It's a decision we all have to make. You see, in life, something will always scare us. We'll always be afraid of something. The only thing we can do in the face of fear is either turn away from it and have it chase us for the rest of our lives, or we can stand up to fear and stare it down and conquer it. Sergeant Antlock chose to conquer his fear. And now he's 30 yards away from the enemy position. Every single enemy soldier is aiming directly at him because they cannot let him reach their position. So it's only a matter of time before he's shot for a third time. And for a third time, he falls to the ground. But Louisiana FFA, this is not the end of our story. Despite being severely injured with broken ribs, a collapsed lung, right arm shattered, and the other shoulder badly wounded, Sergeant Antlock struggled to his feet, continued his charge, and captured the enemy. He reunited with his men, but when they faced another danger just moments after reaching that safety, he led the charge again, and he inspired his men to do the same. On May 24th, 1944, on that very same mission, Sergeant Sylvester Antlock was killed in action after he received a fourth bullet wound through the heart. But for his actions that day, for his valor, for his commitment to his men and to the mission, and for his courage beyond overwhelming odds, he received our nation's highest award, the Congressional Medal of Honor. When I first heard the story of Sylvester Antlock and what he did that day, I couldn't believe it. I thought that this was some Hollywood script made up to sell some movie. But this actually happened. There was this normal dude, this human being, who was shot 3 times, and 3 times he chose to get back up. Like I said, I'm not brave enough to do that. I would have never gotten up in the first place. But sometimes we say things like that. Things like, oh, I'm not good enough. That's for someone else. I don't have the skill. And it goes to show how scared we really are. We're afraid to take risk because of what we think will happen. I'm more afraid of what will happen if we don't take risk. Risk-taking is such a simple part of life. We do it every single day. Every day we choose to get out of bed, and we risk having a bad day. But if we were actually afraid of having a bad day, we would have never gotten out of bed in the first place. And if we didn't do that, none of you would be sitting in the chair you are today, surrounded by the people you call friends and family. So you see, risk-taking is such a simple part of life. We just sometimes tend to overthink the process or underestimate ourselves. I'll give you an example. This past summer during leadership camp, I decided to try out the zip line at the Wesley Center. I was excited. I was stoked to go on this ride. But as we got closer and closer to the zip line tower, as we climbed higher and higher, I became more and more scared. I let fear take control, so much so that even though everyone around me was encouraging me, telling me that, hey, it's okay, I wasn't listening. All of these thoughts ran through my head. What if I fall? What if the line snaps? What if I'm not strapped in good enough? Fear was so bad that I didn't even move for a whole 30 minutes. As luck would have it, I was the very first person up that tower, which meant that no one else could go before I did. I thought I was perfectly safe from any future embarrassment. I was wrong. I was very wrong. See, even though Alex was the only other state officer up there, Miss Elizabeth also climbed that tower with us, and she took the worst photo of me. And I promise, guys, those are not tears. I'm not crying. But I stayed glued to that pole for 30 minutes, afraid to move. But once the 30 minutes were over, once I had calmed down, once I began to listen to the people around me, I closed my eyes, and slowly, step by step, I began to make my way to the edge. I closed my eyes, I picked up my feet, and I was off. The ride didn't even last 30 seconds, And when I realized that I wasn't falling, I eventually opened my eyes. The view was amazing. We rode over the lake at the Wesley Center. I could see trees towering the facility. I could hear everyone playing in the basketball court. I enjoyed the ride. I faced my fear of heights, and it was fun. I still kissed the ground when they unhooked me. But I actually enjoyed it. Ever since the zip line, ever since I chose to face one of my worst fears, I decided it was time to face more of my fears. I'm also deathly afraid of snakes. So much so that every time we went to the zoo, I completely avoided the reptile enclosure. Even though the snakes were behind thick glass, I did not want to see them. But like I said, I had new confidence. I was ready to face that fear. So I went to the zoo. I went to the reptile enclosure. And that day, that specific day I chose to face my fear, they took one of the snakes out of the enclosure. That was too much. I was not putting that snake around my neck. That was too much for one person to handle alone. Thankfully, my mom was right there beside me. And guess what? She was just as afraid of snakes as I was. And so together, we put the snake around our neck, and we got one of the best photos. Come to think of it, every superhero has always had someone with them to help them out when things got too tough. Even though they had all of these cool superpowers, all these amazing abilities, they still needed help. Captain America had Bucky Barnes. Batman had Robin. Mermaid Man had Barnacle Boy. So you see, sometimes facing our fears is a lot. We can't always do it alone. But because my friends and family chose to face their fears with me, I had confidence to go out and face even more of my fears. So I'm thinking, if we face our fears today, should the other people around us that we're not afraid to do it, if we make that first step forward and choose to stand up to whatever makes us afraid, other people will do the same. Louisiana FFA, I encourage you, whether you run straight into your fear or you choose to take little steps to conquering it, choose to be courageous.
I can still remember me and Miss November rain, beautiful and strange, always so inclined, coloring outside the lines. Yeah, you were never on time. You've always been slightly awkward, kinda weird, upside down and not all here. What's wrong with me and you is crystal clear. Sometimes I'm in a room where I don't belong, and the house is on fire and there's no alarm, and the walls are melting too. How about you? I've never been the favorite, thought I'd seen it all, till I got my invitation to the lunatic ball, and my friends are coming too. How about you? Don't worry, it's all just a symptom of being human. Unpack all your baggage, hide it in the attic where you hope it disappears. This all seems so familiar, but
Oh man, let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this man right here is one of the most fun, courageous, patriotic, and inspirational people I have ever met. From his long late night talks with me and his inspirational quotes and his favorite movie, Rocky. Every time I talk to this man, I learn something new. So living in the moment, love Riley, Emily, Jillian, Alyssa, Camille, Kirsten, Ellie, Elena, and Alex. Louisiana FFA, for the final time, your 2023-2024 State Treasurer, Cayde Gordon.